When examining the written official documents of Egyptian history, you encounter a strange gap. In the famous list of kings commissioned during the reign of Pharaoh Ramesses II, the name of a ruler who should chronologically be right there has been completely chiseled away from the stone. The state wants us to assume that he was never born, never ascended the throne, and never lived. This man was Amenhotep IV, better known to history by his later name, Akhenaten. The Egyptian bureaucracy and military harbored such a profound hatred for this man that immediately after his death, they razed the massive cities he built, smashed his statues, and erased the traces of faith he brought through a systematic institutional operation. So, why would a state harbor such immense anger to completely excommunicate its own king from history? Because Akhenaten was not just an ordinary political figure at the top of the palace. He was a radical disruption who shut down a thousands-old established religious industry with a single decision: impose the idea of an abstract God with no human form, and embody for the first time in the Egyptian palace the prophetic profile we see in sacred texts. Today, we will discuss why he was systematically erased from official history, the religion trade established by priests, the genetic disasters within the family, and why that great exodus mentioned in sacred books does not take a single line in the magnificent state archives of Egypt, using direct scientific articles and historical evidence. To understand why Akhenaten became a target and suffered the greatest censorship in history, we need to look at the real power that ruled Egypt behind the scenes at that time, the priests of Amun. At that time, the priests owned more land, massive slave armies, and immense tax revenues than the Egyptian kingdom itself. Religion had ceased to be a spiritual ritual and had turned into a massive monopoly industry based entirely on money and power. The biggest revenue stream of this industry was fears regarding the underworld. We all know the famous court of the underworld. The heart of the deceased is weighed on the scale against the feather of justice. If you turn out to be a sinner, the crocodile-headed monster Amun eats your heart, and your soul disappears forever. On paper, a perfect and terrifying justice system is at work. However, when you examine the thousands-year-old papyri of the Book of the Dead and the wall paintings in the burial chambers standing in world museums today, you encounter a very ironic, even tragicomic truth. In Egyptian history to date, not a single noble or wealthy depiction has been found that lost on the scale or was declared a sinner. Without exception, everyone passed the scale with flying colors. Everyone was declared innocent, and everyone went straight to heaven. The reason is extremely simple. The priests who prepared these guidebooks and blessed the tombs sold this theological service to the rich in exchange for massive sums of money. In other words, whoever paid the money also bought the divine scale after death in their favor. The priests even wrote the following spell under those famous beetle-shaped scarab amulets placed on the hearts of mummies. O my heart, do not testify against me before Osiris on the day of judgment. Do not expose my sins. Mankind had established a mechanism to silence even their own conscience and heart with bribes in the presence of the gods. Here, the moment Akhenaten ascended the throne, he dissolved this massive financial network, the religion trade, and the authority of the priests with a single move. Akhenaten did not just confiscate the properties of the priests and close the temples. He completely abandoned the city of Thebes, which had been the heart of Egypt for centuries. He built a massive capital from scratch in a virgin desert area known today as Tel El Amarna, which had never been dedicated to any god or spirit before. The Aten cult, which reflected the belief system he brought, did not resemble classical Egyptian religion in any way. While Egyptians always drew their gods in animal, human, or semi-human hybrid forms, Akhenaten declared for the first time in history an abstract creator who had no material form, no human image, could not be drawn, and gave life only through its rays. This radical stance brings him closer to a prophetic figure seen in sacred books rather than a king, because Akhenaten never viewed himself as a god like traditional pharaohs. Instead, he defined himself as the sole messenger of that invisible power on earth, the recipient of its revelation and the preacher of the doctrine. These expressions in the famous great hymn to the Aten, written by his own hand and found on the walls of the Amarna tombs, are striking for the history of theology. O sole God, like whom there is no other, you did create the world according to your desire. Whilst you were alone, you give life to all existence through your light. This literary language, style, and theological approach are almost word for word identical to the biblical texts that will be written centuries later, especially the 104th Psalm in the Book of Psalms. The radical change he made in art and architecture was also the product of this philosophy. Instead of having his own statues made muscular, strong, and flawless like traditional pharaohs, he had them designed in an androgynous way with a long, thin neck, prominent breasts, and wide hips. Although it was claimed for centuries that he was trans or carried severe hormonal diseases, comprehensive analyses published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, refuted these claims. Akhenaten had 6 daughters clearly seen in the wall reliefs and genetically confirmed, meaning it was impossible for him to carry those syndromes leading to infertility. The truth was that Akhenaten was not sick, since he defined his God as a genderless creator who was both mother and father. He reflected his own body as a genderless, androgynous symbol of this abstract creator on earth. He shattered the masculine king image to be idolized by his own hands. So, did this idea of a single god descend upon Egyptian soil, suddenly out of nowhere? Historical and archaeological data take us to the deep historical relations of Egypt with the Levant, namely the geography of northern Syria and Palestine. The Hyksos, a population of Levantine origin that militarily invaded and ruled Egypt for a period, had left deep cultural traces in these lands. In fact, the origins and theological stance of Grand Vizier Yuya, one of the top administrators in Akhenaten's palace, whose mummy has reached the present day with a fascinating preservation, are matched today by many independent theologians and academics with the figure of Joseph in sacred books. As it is known, Joseph also came to the Egyptian palace from a foreign land, became the highest level administrator, and directed state policies. However, while Akhenaten chose oneness and abstraction in faith, he preferred a very harsh biological inwardness within the palace. The obsession with incestuous marriage, carried out for centuries in the Egyptian royal family, in order not to spoil the divine blood and not to lose it to foreigners, caused a terrible biological collapse in his lineage. Historic DNA mapping studies led by the world-famous Egyptologist Zahi and published in Nature and JAMA magazines definitively proved Akhenaten's greatest family secret. The DNA of the female mummy known in the scientific world as the younger lady revealed that she was both Akhenaten's full biological sister and the biological mother of Egypt's most popular boy king, Tutankhamun. In other words, Tutankhamun was a child born entirely of a full brother-sister marriage. Virtual autopsies and computed tomography scans showed that Tutankhamun was born with a cleft palate due to this consanguineous marriage, could not step on his left foot due to bone necrosis, and had to walk with canes throughout his life. Akhenaten's pure blood obsession turned into a heavy genetic invoice that condemned his own son to death at the age of 19. When the boy king died so suddenly, it was caught so unprepared that the famous gold mask and bust in his tomb were actually not made for him. The works prepared for another noble were hastily modified and adapted to Tutankhamun. Egypt had tried to hide even the biological collapse it created behind magnificent gold. The Egyptian bureaucracy was exceptionally professional at destroying any history that conflicted with its state ideology. Following Akhenaten's death, traditional pharaohs such as Ramesses II and General Horemheb launched a radical operation to completely erase his memory and his monotheistic reforms from the people's consciousness. The city of Amarna, which Akhenaten built, was systematically dismantled, his temples were demolished, and his name was physically chiseled away from all official king lists. The state possessed a censorship mechanism powerful enough to effectively excommunicate its own ruler from the historical record. Egyptian state archives were never maintained to record objective history or to preserve impartial information for future generations. These records function primarily as propaganda tools designed to immortalize the power of the state and the perceived divinity of the pharaoh. Any event that suggested internal ideological conflict, the questioning of established priestly authority, or the collapse of the royal lineage due to internal crises, was deemed unworthy of the state record. Therefore, the absolute silence within the official archives regarding this era is not evidence of its insignificance, but rather clear proof of a massive, institutionally enforced censorship of a crisis that profoundly shook the Egyptian empire. Although Akhenaten's religious revolution was suppressed by the established priestly class, his order was dismantled, and his name was forced into oblivion. The theological shift that emerged during this era left behind significant cultural footprints. Today, archaeological sites such as the massive Serapis Temple, known as the Red Basilica in Bergama, and the remnants of ancient temples in Ephesus provide concrete evidence of how the Egyptian belief systems and theological concepts integrated with the cultures of Anatolian lands. These sites demonstrate that the interactions between Anatolia and Egypt were far more complex and enduring than traditional state records suggest. Pharaohs could command that names be erased from stone walls, and the state could attempt to censor its own history to maintain an illusion of perfection. However, in the light of modern science, DNA analysis, archaeology, and comparative theology, we see that the realities hidden behind those temple walls are finally coming to light. Akhenaten was not merely a ruler. He represents the first major historical challenge to establish dogmas and remains a focal point in understanding the development of abstract theological thought. History may be buried by those who fear the truth, but ultimately, the facts will always surface. If you want to discover more hidden truths of history and join us on this intellectual journey, do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and watch our other documentaries on the screen to dive deeper into the mysteries of the past. Thank you for watching.